So, I mean, did they do a lumbar puncture? How did they diagnose for
They
you?
did.
Did an LP?
They
Okay.
did a lumbar puncture. They ended up, the final analysis came back, and it took some time because generally, I guess you have a protein associated with it, right? It's a, what do you call it? There's not a Guillain-Barre virus that you look at and go, oh, you have Guillain-Barre. It's a list of symptoms, right? So
Mhm.
it has to be assessed. And then there's a protein associated with it, I guess. They found that, but I also had a high white blood cell count in my lumbar puncture,
Mhm.
which I guess is unusual. So they called it an unusual case of Guillain-Barre. All my doctors were telling me that the vaccine had nothing to do with it. It was too long ago.
Mhm.
7, 8 months had passed.
Mhm.
So I was diagnosed with an abnormal case of Guillain-Barre eventually. But we started the IVIG pretty much immediately because they were worried about it hitting my diaphragm and my ability to breathe.
Yeah, it sounds like you got, quite a severe case if you were, almost fully paralyzed, and it certainly is. There are people that die from Guillain-Barre, and definitely you can have respiratory compromise. And so, so you had the the immunoglobulin therapy, IV. What happened after that? Did you start resolving your symptoms, or how did that go?
Yeah, they hit me Tuesday night. I was going to have 5 days of treatment. I think basically it was like one 30-minute long IV for 5 straight days. By Wednesday evening, I felt better, and by Thursday, I had regained function. And by the last day of the 5 days, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, by Saturday, I felt much better. The I describe it as a wave. It was a wave. It went from my toes and fingers to my wrists and elbows and my joints. It came from the edges of my body to the center. And by the end of the 5th day, I could feel it going from the center of my body to my fingers and toes, where it kind of went in order. It was a tingle. It was a loss of sensation. It was a loss of control. It was complete and total weakness and inability to move. So you get the ability to move back, and then you get the sensation back, and then you get the fine control back. And it kind of waved body and then waved out away from my body. Now by Saturday, I felt much better.
So you were hospitalized for, you said, like 5 days or something like that in the hospital?
No, I was hospitalized. I was hospitalized for about 2 weeks. So what they told
2
me
weeks.
was,
Okay.
here, this is what Guillain-Barre is going to do. You're going to be here as an inpatient through the IVIG, and then we're going to hold you and assess you. And then you're going to spend about 3 months here as an inpatient doing physical therapy to recover your ability to, feed yourself and wipe yourself, etc. And then you'll do 4 to 6 months as an outpatient in therapy to regain your function.
Okay.
And I have friends who are physical therapists, and that's kind of right along the line. So I was prepared to spend 3 months in the hospital doing physical therapy.
Okay.
Well, I think on Sunday, they send me up to physical therapy. They bill my insurance for 5 days because they bill it in 5-day blocks. By Wednesday, I had essentially fully recovered. I was walking with a walker, then without a walker and a cane, and then without a cane and under my own power. And by Saturday, they were telling me that they didn't know why I was there at all. But they had to keep me because they had billed my insurance. I ended up getting a cerebral nerve biopsy, which is down in the calf. It's not a movement nerve. It's not a motor control nerve.
Right. Yeah,
it's
cerebral nerve. That's a sensory nerve. Right. Yeah.
Sensory nerve. Right. So they cut me open. They take some nerve. So they keep me in the hospital a couple extra days. But I end up getting discharged on Thursday. They discharged me after telling me I'm going to be in inpatient physical therapy for 3 months. They discharged me on Thursday. I have an outpatient physical therapist appointment on Friday. I go to that, and the doctor says, there's nothing I can do for you. You just go home and take care of yourself. So what was supposed to be 4 months of outpatient therapy turned into about 20 minutes.
Why? I'm just curious as to why they did the cerebral nerve biopsy at that stage when you were pretty much recovered. Sound like you're pretty much recovered at that point. Were they trying to get more of a diagnosis? I mean, it's an extra procedure somebody's got to pay for, right?
They wanted to confirm the diagnosis, because at that point they were still looking at 2 contradictory markers. They were looking at a protein marker that was pointing at Guillain-Barre, and they were looking at a white blood cell count that was pointing to something else. And initially, the doctor I originally had, he was very content to just say, hey, this is what it is and move on. Ended up getting a second neurologist who wanted to do a deeper dive because he couldn't refute the possibility that was some form of sarcoidosis or cancer.
Okay.
So he ordered the biopsy to confirm. But by the time they did the biopsy, to your point, the nerves, when they got the nerves back and I got the results from the biopsy, it was completely normal. According to the biopsy, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Okay. And then your white count, I mean, you said you had a high white count on your LP, your lumbar puncture, but I mean, did you have does your blood have a high white count in it as well? Because that's often indicative of infection or certainly underlying inflammation. So I guess that resolved too, I assume.
Yeah, nothing. I don't think anything in my blood came back abnormal.
I see. Okay.
So it was just the lumbar puncture. And it, I looked at it, and when I look at it, right, so I'm ordering hospital food and they don't have anything except for eggs and bacon that I can eat on the diet.
Right.
So I was ordering eggs and bacon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when my wife wasn't bringing me food from outside,
Yeah.
So the way I look at it, if you're familiar with if you remember that plane crash with Sully on the river, right?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
That ring a bell for some people. He talked about how, he was able to successfully land that plane because every takeoff and landing, you're making a deposit in your experience bank account. Mm-hmm. And then when something goes wrong, you make a significant withdrawal of that experience to save your life. And I looked at the 2 or 3 years that I was carnivore and ketogenic, and all the years I spent lifting weights and running and training and the things that I've done, I looked at those in hindsight as my deposits into my health account. And then when I got hit by GBS, it wasn't that I was impervious to GBS or the impact of GBS, but it allowed me to recover in such a way that it didn't have the impact on me. I know people who are physical therapists who I talk to afterwards, and they're dealing with people who are 6, 7, 8 months after their diagnosis who do not have enough motor control to control their own wheelchairs. People are still significantly impacted, many months down the road. And I was back to playing with my kids in the front yard, 15, 20 days after it happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats on Guillain-Barre, I have them in front of me, it says about 40% of the people do not fully recover motor strength. I mean, 40% of people just never recover all their motor strength, and 20% aren't able to walk after 6 months. So it's can be significantly problematic. While you're in hospital eating bacon and eggs every meal, I mean, any comments? Did any people say, why aren't you eating the pancakes and the Jell-O and all the crap they normally serve you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're beating me up. But it's funny. I had a young PA. I think she was the neurology PA, and I told her, I said, there are a lot of people in my life who believe my crazy diet put me in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And she started laughing. This is like after I had started recovering. We were still trying to just figure out if it was actually Guillain-Barre syndrome. They were making arrangements for my physical therapy, and she laughed. She's probably about 23. She laughed and she says, you're 50 and you look 30. Mm-hmm. How anybody could think that your diet got you here is crazy. I'm sure some of your viewers are aware. When I was up on the 3rd floor doing physical therapy, the people around me were 60, 70, 80. They were obese. They were missing feet. They were covered in lesions. And I'd be in the physical therapy sessions with them, and I would hear them bemoaning to their 25, 23-year-old trainers, what could I have done to avoid this? Why did I end up here? It didn't have to be this way. What could I have done? And it was just, it breaks your heart, because as we know, if these people have been doing, these are the results of habits and actions and behaviors. And if you're doing the right behaviors, chances are you're not going to succumb to those kinds of impacts. And it was just really tough to be in physical therapy and listen to people who would rather be out playing with their grandkids, bemoaning their obesity and their missing limbs, when it didn't have to be that way. And the trainers weren't telling them, hey, eat right and exercise. Their trainers were telling them, some people just get unlucky. It is what it is. And it's very, very frustrating.